Welcome to the Learning Core podcast. This is your stand-in host, David Cataba, recording from Washington, D.C. Last summer, we recorded a series of conversations exploring gun violence in America for the Check-In podcast, the show that I host, focusing on the work of innovative peacemakers working to transform the violence in our communities into lasting flourishing. We brought in a multiplicity of voices, including pastors, community organizers, and artists, working explicitly with faith communities and otherwise to not only define the issue and name its sources, but also cast the imagination for a world beyond it. We think you will be challenged and inspired by their diverse insights. We were so excited to share this with you all last fall when our attention was diverted by the horrific attacks of October 7th and the 9-month-long campaign in Gaza ever since that has led to unimaginable suffering ongoing in this very moment. Still today, we remain focused on working to end the ongoing horrors in Gaza, release all of the captives, end the occupation, and develop a viable path forward towards justice and peace in Israel-Palestine. And we wanted to return to this conversation now. June is Gun Violence Prevention Month here in the U.S., as we think these conversations are so rich and might even inform some of the ways we are advocating in this moment. And we didn't feel it was right to sit on them any longer. We've left the original introductions in so you can be reminded of the context within which they were recorded. So bear with us if they sound a little funny to your 2024 ears. Nevertheless, the insights from our guests are evergreen, and these issues haven't gone anywhere in the meantime. Folks, we have an invitation before us. Let's take up the call of peace. With that, enjoy the show. This is your host, David Cataba, checking in from Washington, D.C. I'm going to give you all some context for today's conversation. So today, we're going to be bringing the conversation back to the U.S. You see, this summer, these past few years, and really the stories of the past few decades has been one of seemingly endless cycles of gun violence, social demand for change, and little policy action. Almost none of us have been untouched in one way or another. Some of us know students who have been under a lockdown at their schools, traumatized at a vulnerable age. Some of us have grown up with the threat of gun violence down our street. Some of us have even lost a loved one ourselves. Our communities are in crisis. Not only the communities facing the greatest amount of violence, but also those who feel the need to arm themselves with deadly weapons out of fear of daily living. Something is wrong. We have a problem. As peacemakers, we have to be willing to see and name that problem. The first practice of peacemaking is listening to understand. We have to see the world as it is before we can hope to heal it. The conversations over the next few weeks will help us to better see and name what that problem is. But peacemakers don't stop there. They also look ahead. They look for ways to imagine something new, a vision of flourishing for all of us. Violence transformed into justice, reconciliation, and flourishing. So what is that vision, and how do we get there? To answer that question, we are inviting a number of brilliant, creative, and courageous peacemakers finding innovative solutions to help us break free of our past and write a new future when it comes to gun violence, to this show to share with us what they are doing out in the world. They are taking the problem head on, helping us imagine a different reality driven by commitment to nonviolence in the beloved community. And they are calling each of us to claim agency and responsibility to be a part of this movement. We are so excited to hear from them. Today's guests are Ainka Jackson and Lydia Chatmon. Ainka Jackson is the founding executive director of the Selma Center for Nonviolence, Truth, and Reconciliation and part of the Telos Board of Directors. And Lydia Chatmon is the director of programs at the center, which partners with institutions to promote love, the establishment of justice, and build the beloved community. The center is committed to transforming and healing the root causes of physical, political, psychological, environmental, economic, and racial violence at personal, family, community, and systemic levels. The folks at the center are doing amazing work, and if you've been a part of our Restore US experience, you've had the chance to visit and learn from some of them. Ainka has been on our podcast before, and we are so excited to hear from them. Ainka, where are you checking in from?
I am checking in from Selma, the wonderful, beloved Selma, which has changed the world before, and we're not done yet.
That's right, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute. Lydia, thanks for joining us. Where are you checking in from?
Hey there, I'm checking in from Selma as well. I am steps away from our iconic bridge and delighted to be here with you.
Well, you both have so much wisdom and insight, and I am really grateful for your time and excited for our network to get to hear from you. To start, I would love to just hear a little bit more about this special place, Selma, where you're calling in from, where you've chosen to do work. Tell us a little bit about your community and why you've chosen to do the work you're doing there.
Lydia and I both are from Selma, and so we were born into this place. We both ran from this place, and we were both called back to this place. We both said we would never come back to this place, and here we are. And Lydia can say for herself why that is. For me, even though Selma has so much beauty, there's also much pain. And so for me, I didn't want to come back because of the pain that was associated with it, the heaviness, the spirit of hopelessness that was here. But Selma, like many places that have changed the world, there is always pushback. There's always retaliation when you have changed the world. And Selma didn't just change the world in 1965 with what our foot soldiers did to bring about the Voting Rights Act. We changed the world in 1865 when it was the last major battle of the Civil War, the Battle of Selma, because the Selma was such a stronghold to the Confederacy. But Lydia, we're not going to wait until 2065, right? To change it again. And so we're doing so many of us and our partners are doing amazing things to make Selma a model of the beloved community.
Absolutely. So Selma means so much, as Ainka shared. We're both from the historic city of Selma, Alabama. Born and reared here, lived in other places. The primary reason that I left Selma as an adult was coming with a level of college education, right, into a work environment, being able to have a significant earning power. There just weren't the opportunities. There weren't the opportunities that I felt I needed to have. You know, as a young person who wants to thrive as a professional, I really saw my elders being more of a hindrance as opposed to a help. Equity did not exist back then. That was not a buzzword like it is now. So to give language to it in 2023, there was just not the equity. There are a lot of reasons for that, including the pain that Ainka just talked about. And fear. People moving in fear. You know, if I'm coming into a space and I have a different set of knowledge, a different set of skills that have been advanced because of exposure, right? And I'm coming into a space and then here comes the leader of an organization saying, teach her how to do this. And it's like, wait a minute, if I teach her how to do this, you may put me out of my job. So why would I do that? Left for years, got on a plane. My mom was crying because that was back before, you know, when people could actually escort you to the gate, right, and give you the final hugs at the airport. And I'm watching her cry and I'm like, Mama, I'm not coming back. Nope. I'll come back for holidays, but I'm never coming back. And like they always say never. But yeah, back in 2012, I chose to come back home. But it is something I have not regretted one day. Selma is special because we are 14.1 square miles of our nation's history before there was a nation, right? You literally can come to our community and experience the telling of the story from well before there was a United States of America, through the Civil War, through the voting rights struggle, and through the election, well past the election of Barack Obama as our first Black president. So Yeah, Selma is truly special. Of course, most folks come from all over the world to see our iconic bridge, which we are working hard to make sure receives proper designation and recognition. So we are delighted to be on the ground working alongside our neighbors to make Selma a better place to live, work, and play.
Selma has this amazing history. It's changed the world so many times. And today it's facing some really significant challenges. And I want to spend some time talking a little bit about those challenges, facing the problems, head on, understanding what they are, and then getting to some of the ways that you all at the center are addressing those with innovation and creativity. But just to start, can you share with us a little bit more about the challenges facing your community, and especially as it relates to gun violence?
We consider both sides of the pistol, right? Gun violence hurts not just the victim, the person who may be shot, but it also impacts the person and the families on both sides. We talk about the impact of broken relationships leading to a broken community that needs healing. And so in our community, we experience this on an up close and personal basis, being a very small community where we've had limited access to opportunity, resources to release the hurt, to release the pain, right? Those things aren't there. It behooves us to be on the ground working alongside our neighbors to make sure that both sides, right, that we're able to meet in the middle so that we can throw away the gun part, the gun and the violence, right? The Selma Center for Nonviolence, no hyphen, so that we can work together to build a beloved community.
And we have a lot of work to do. In 2014, our county was the poorest in the state. In 2015, we were the most dangerous place to live in Alabama. In 2016, we were the eighth most dangerous place per capita in the country. It's insane. It's insane. And we believe that broken relationships have led to the broken economy, leading to broken communities, as Lydia said, all in need of healing. And so we partner with communities to heal relationships, to heal the economy and heal communities. And I wish I could say that number, that eighth most dangerous place per capita in the country, got better. It actually got worse and went up by like 56%. It did so for many reasons, including things that Lydia talked about, like the lack of opportunity, right? The lack of mental health. So like when you have trauma, right? And almost all of us have trauma, but do we know how to healthily deal with it? And when you don't know, have an outlet, or haven't been taught or to have tools to healthily deal with it, it's going to come out, right? We can be assured that trauma will come out. The question is, will it come out in a healthy way or in an unhealthy way? And so part of what we are trying to do is, with our clients and with our community, is make sure that we all have healthy ways of dealing with trauma, because Selma has endured a lot of trauma.
We can't disconnect the impacts of gun violence from a larger lens of racial equity. Can you help us understand?
So I want to say two main things about this. One, we have internalized the violence that has been committed upon us. And it's important to know that, right? Again, when you have trauma, if you don't know what to do with it, it's going to come out. And it's also going to come out with those who are around you. And we still live in a very segregated country. And so this idea of black on black crime is actually a false narrative and a harmful narrative. Department of Justice studies show that when we look at violent crimes, so not just gun violence, but violent crimes, that for black and white people, it is about the same. For rural and urban, because we think it's an urban problem, but for rural and urban, it is about the same. But what's the difference is poverty. What's the difference is poverty. And the thing is that we got more black people who are poor, disproportionately poor, not numbers wise, but disproportionately poor. And so the numbers are going to be off, because we have had less opportunity. We have been blocked out more. And so until we start to deal with root causes, which is what nonviolence is all about, and deal with, the economic violence that we are causing in this nation, we will continue to have gun violence, because people don't just want to go around shooting people. Right? People do things for a reason. There is a scripture that people may have heard that says, "Without a vision, the people perish." I heard it once say, "Without a vision, the people cast off all restraint." There has to be something that restrains you in a moment, right? When you are, or when something that has triggered you, something that has made you extremely upset on top of the trauma you've already had. What is that restrains you? And when there's no opportunity, right? All you have is a block that you don't own, right? But it's a sense of respect, a sense of the only thing of dignity you have. Then that's you don't have anything else to restrain you, so you go for it, right? And so we have to make sure our people have something bigger than themselves to restrain them, a vision, a purpose bigger than themselves. And so I'm really, really excited about some of the work that Lydia is leading, because we want to make sure that people have not just living wages. Living wages are a great start, especially in a city where our economic development authority literally keeps wages low on purpose. It's called backfilling, so people can keep their good workers. Very oppressive. So living wages is very important. But I also need more than living wages if I need something to restrain me, right? And so I need purpose. And so I'm really excited about some of the ways Lydia is leading our work to ensure that economic violence, which is a root cause of gun violence, is being addressed as well.
I really appreciate that framework that you're offering, Ainka, of helping us ask that question of why that violence exists and get to the root causes, what's under the surface. What we often talk about at Telos is that there's the physical violence, the punch, the gunshot, but then there's the structural and the cultural violence that enables that physical violence. And this reminder that people, at least I would say, aren't born ready to commit violence. It happens from this process of trauma and hopelessness, as you're describing. And part of what the work that you are doing at Selma Center is offering those opportunities for dignity and for healthy expression of trauma and hope. I'd love to hear about what that looks like. Lydia, you've been doing a lot of work around economic opportunity and development. Can you tell us a little bit about what that work is?
To address economic violence in our community, we have developed what we call the City Center. A lot of the work that we've done, especially when it comes to the heart and mind work, has been in building relationships. But the City Center, and that's CITI, which stands for Community Influencing Transformation and Innovation, this is an actual brick and mortar reflection of our commitment to building an ecosystem of change makers, right? And folks who are throughout our community who have been denied opportunity. So the City Center will essentially become a hub for small business owners. I was talking to one of our local small business owners. As a matter of fact, I talked to her this morning and she said, "Oh, so this is like the library," right? In a prior conversation, she said, "This is going to be like the library for small business owners." And I said, "Yeah, except you have your very own personal librarian, right? Because transformation coaches who will be housed inside that City Center will set us apart from the traditional idea of an innovation center or a business incubator, right?" And it's not just for small business owners. The City Center is designed for anyone in our community who has a righteous dream and wants to make that dream come true. So if you are looking to advance your education, if you're looking to become a homeowner, we want to help with our transformation coaches. We want to help people have that one-on-one and small group support necessary to successfully navigate those barriers. And the barriers are a lot of times rooted in the things that Ainka was talking about, as far as like systemic racism. It is it is real, right? This is not something that we've left in the past. This is something that is still operating in 2023. And so we are delighted to have the commitment of our team and folks across the country who have been interested and becoming more and more supportive of our work in developing the city center. We want it to be a model of what is necessary to build a beloved community, because equity is one of the core tenets of our work. And so equity means not just helping folks, right, become homeowners, but making sure that they have everything they need in order to remain a homeowner. Right? We are not just helping small business owners establish their businesses, but we are connecting them with the resources. We're not the experts on everything. We want to help you navigate what programs are already in place so that you're able to use those opportunities and those networks of folks that can truly help you and serve you. We're a catalyst, right? We want to push you forward. As a matter of fact, one of our partners is called Catalyst, right? They're a program that is they're based in Clanton, Alabama, and they are committed to come to the city center on a monthly basis to do third Thursday events for entrepreneurs to network and learn about opportunities, including how to successfully attract government contracts, right? Government contracts sounds like something that folks like, oh, well, I don't do anything the government would be interested in. They purchase everything from toilet tissue to lemonade to t-shirts, right? And so if we have folks in our community who are equipped to do that, we can help with that process. If we have folks in our community who are not yet equipped, we will connect the dots for them. Even folks who have small businesses that are based inside their homes, right? We want to be able to help them attract financial resources that, because they're home based, they cannot, right? They can't currently do that. So we can serve at the city center as your commercial address. Young people who are interested in starting their own businesses, young people who are interested in becoming a part of our tourism industry. We are working very hard to make sure that the city center can truly act as a real hub, a place that people can look to for guidance. Again, we're not the experts on everything. What we are seeking to do is to connect the dots for people, to hold people's hand so that our community, that we all, including the staff, right? Because this is a journey that we're taking together, right? That we as neighbors, that we're walking this path together and seeking the success that our community and our world so readily deserves.
And let me just add that that because violence, racism like violence is systemic, that means it operates on a personal, cultural, and institutional level. Personal, cultural, and institutional level. And so the transformation coaches will help people navigate barriers on a personal, cultural, and institutional level. That's particularly important for our violence intervention program clients, right? Because if my dream is to have a business, my own business, I could have numerous barriers. I could have a barrier that I can't get a driver's license, right? I could have a barrier that I owe child support, right? Like, so it's not just like the basics of like starting a business. It's like, what are the barriers? And some of these are historic barriers, right? Like even the idea of just dreaming. And particularly in Black communities, there's a history of lynching when your dreams came true, and we carry that in our bodies, right? And so, helping people navigate those things to really to be able to live out their purpose is really, really important. They will also go through nonviolence training, nonviolence conflict reconciliation training, racial equity training, restorative justice training. So equipping them with the tools for a transformed life. So not just because, as Lydia said, we don't want people just to own a home. We want them to be able to keep a home. And keeping a home isn't just about having money. It's not just about bills. it takes a transformed life in our community, which includes a whole lot of different things, including being able in a place that has no public transportation, like in Selma, figuring out like what happens when I don't have a ride to work. What do I do in that situation? Who do I call? How do I like that? These are the things that you walk with people through as you're helping them to have a transformed life. You can't tell people to just stop doing violence. That's not a thing, right? People, we all, whenever we have something that we're doing that we shouldn't do, it always has to be replaced with something we should. It can't just stay empty. And so, really trying to, as we're encouraging people to not be violent and encouraging ourselves, because we all have things that we do violent in some particular way, right? That we're replacing those with things that are life giving and life affirming and purpose filled.
That's such a helpful intervention, Lydia and Ainka, and it reminds me of our first practice of peacemaking: listen to understand. And that before we can do any of the work, any of the advocacy, we have to begin by listening to others and hearing, what do these community members actually want? What does a flourishing life look like for them, right? I remember there was a conversation that we had with you all at the center and our friend Mama Callie, who's a longtime resident of Selma and now is in Montgomery, but was talking about how there's lots of good things we can imagine, and her community just wanted trash pickup, like the simple services that if we're coming in with all these visions, we miss what is it that people actually need and desire in their own words. So I think that's so essential, and I love the way in which you all emphasize that this work is transformative across the whole spectrum, not just on a physical, economic level, but on a relational level as well. And you use the term beloved community a lot. And I would love just to hear a little bit more, maybe as we wrap up here, what that means. What is that vision of beloved community? Because it goes a lot deeper than, okay, there's no violence on the streets anymore, like people maybe have wealth. It's bigger than that. Can you give us a glimpse of what beloved community looks like?
So, beloved community was a term that was created by Josiah, which I love because my son's name is Josiah. Side note, but who Dr. King made famous, and our definition of it comes from Principle 2 of Nonviolence, which is beloved community is the framework for the future. And what it says is that it's a nonviolent concept that an overall effort to where we raise the level of relationships to a height where justice prevails and people can attain their full human potential. Let me just break that down a little bit. So what it says is that we can't have justice unless we have a high level of relationships. That's really, really important in a world where even in justice-oriented organizations, we do a lot of internal injustice, right? Because we don't have the intentionality. Again, the intent versus impact thing, right? We need both, right? And so it's so important. We talk about the beloved community is not just a destination; it's the journey, it's the means and the end. It's the how and the why. And so we can't get to the beloved community without being the beloved community. We can't build the beloved community without being the beloved community. Audre Lorde said, you can't tear down the master's house with the master's tool. And you certainly can't build a new house with the master's tool. And so beloved community is a tool that's rooted in love. It's a way of being that's rooted in love. And so you can't build that beloved community without being that beloved community. And so being in relationships that are rooted in love, and not love that's just like touchy-feely, and not knocking touchy-feely, I'm touchy-feely, but that is connected to power, right? Can love and power together where justice is there. And because justice is there and because equity is there, I can fulfill my purpose. I can fulfill my full human potential. Like, that's beautiful. And if we had systems in place where relationships were so high that I understood that if I wanted, and this is a true story, that I wanted fathers in the home, I thought that that was the problem. That I realized all the systemic barriers to that through being in a relationship. And so then I began to advocate and vote differently because of that, right? And then oh, this little boy has his father in the home who's able to nurture. Oh, he's able to reach his full human potential in a different way now. But because we stop even before we get to the relationships being at a high level, I can't talk to you because I don't agree with you. That's what we do, right? And we're really proud of it. I unfriended them because they said something I didn't like. And I deeply believe that if you have proximity, you have responsibility. So let me give an example of that. Oftentimes, our white brothers and sisters don't want to deal with people that they don't agree with. So let's say that you have a uncle who uses racial slurs and he won't rent to Black people. You just decide that you won't deal with him. But what does that leave all the people that he interacts with? I don't have connection and proximity to him, but you do. And so I believe your proximity to him demands that you have a responsibility to do something about, and not just dispose of him, which is what we do when we refuse to be in relationship, right? And this doesn't mean that people shouldn't have healthy boundaries, right? Yes, take care of yourself, but don't put comfort over my safety, your comfort over my safety. And that's what happens when we refuse to work with people because we disagree with them. The world becomes more and more harmful. And so I would say first step is to gather information. Second step is education. And so I'll give some examples of two of those, of how to do both of those things. The first principle of racial equity is to know thyself. And it's often the thing we never do, which is why we can never deal with systemic racism. Right? We think systemic racism is really institutional racism, right? But systemic racism, again, is personal, cultural, and institutional. And so we never deal with our own self about how we've internalized racism and how we participate in it. And so I would encourage people to see how they participated right in their own homes, right in their own communities, right in their own jobs. And I don't mean just one set of people, right? I believe the more privilege you have, the more likely you are to have white supremacy culture characteristics, right? That for example, one that I battle with is fear. It's a major one. I didn't think I was a fearful person, but it's what drives this white supremacy culture, right? Another one is there's only one right way. It keeps us all at odds with each other because we think there's only one right way. And so we raise at this in our life that multiple things can be true at once. And so I encourage people to do their work, right? And we hear that a lot, but what does that look like? Literally struggling with what are those things? Come to a center racial equity training. We do them virtually, right? Come to a center nonviolence training, which helps you to put those principles, the racial equity work, right? To live them out through the principles and steps of nonviolence. And so I think starting with information gathering and education helps. So often we want to do one of two things. It's too overwhelming, so we want to do nothing, problematic, or we want to move so fast that we are actually harmful to what happens, problematic. And so following the steps of nonviolence to try to see what to do really helps. So you do the information gathering, you do the education, then you get to personal commitment. And so then you can determine where I'm at and what I should be doing in this moment before I act and harm people because I'm actually not ready. And so I think following the steps of nonviolence can be so helpful to figure out even what I should do in the moment to help. And if you want your direct action to donate to the Selma Center, we will take that too.
The responsibility of proximity and refusing to put my comfort over someone else's safety. I think that's an invitation to peacemaking that you're offering us, Ainka, and it's a challenging one, but one that I think is so necessary and important. And I'm struck by this whole conversation and the broader discourse that's happening right now about gun control, gun policy, and how these will solve our problems. What you're saying is that it's a both and. It has to be a both and. We have to talk about the bigger structural, the policies, but we also have to talk about the underlying human, relational, cultural structures that enable why we're here in the first place as well. And the work that you all are doing at the Selma Center is so transformative because of that very thing. You're bringing us this bigger picture. It's a gift to be able to learn from you all and be challenged to take up this call of nonviolence more deeply. You all are an inspiration to us at Telos, and I know the many folks who've been on our trips really just value the things they've learned from you and the time that they share. So I want to say thank you for all that you're doing and for your time here today.
Troubled and weary, tired and hurt, hung out on the branches, pushed out in the dirt. You don't have to go it alone. I'll walk with you if you want, side by side. Side by side, we live in the same world, walking different streets, but I wonder if our paths will meet side by side. So maybe we're different from the outside looking in, but I know we want the same thing. We want peace and love in the end. I'm learning, you're learning too. I want to hear it from you. Side by side. Side by side. Rather be side